districts. And to prove that it didn't mean much to them, you would have to see what their grievances are. Their grievances were that the Pine Ridge government was ignoring the outlying districts, that it would do nothing to take care of their grievances for them, that all of the money that was being taken in by the tribe from the U.S. government was being spent mostly in Pine Ridge on the mixed bloods, the oligarchy that understood the American system, and that the full bloods and the traditionalists were being ignored.
In January 1973, in a town near Pine Ridge, a young Lakota named Wesley Bad Heartbull was stabbed to death by a white man. When the authorities charged the white man with involuntary manslaughter instead of murder, AIM led the protest.
When you charge a white man premeditated murder, you charge him with second-degree manslaughter. And we ain't going for it anymore. And I know this whole damn town is an armed camp.
When the prosecutor refused to up the charge to murder, the Indians rioted. But many Indians on the reservation who benefited from government jobs resented the militant tactics. Perceiving a threat to his administration, Tribal Chairman Dick Wilson organized opposition to AIM.
I think every one of us is aware of what happened to the Bureau of Indian Affairs building in Washington back in November. At that time, a threat was made via telephone from Mr. Russell Means to the Secretary of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, Toby Eaglebull, that they wanted to come into Billy Mills Hall here and hold a victory dance. We, of course, said no way. He responded in this way. He said, "Get your pigs together. We're coming in anyway, and we're going to take Billy Mills Hall, and we're going to use it. We're going to have our victory dance."
To counter the threat of the militants, the BIA provided Wilson with financial support. The tribal chairman used the government money to hire a group of Indian vigilantes. They were known as the Goon Squad.
These people that were hired were law-abiding citizens of this reservation, people that had jobs. Many of them did. They didn't want the same thing happening here that happened in Washington.
As tensions increased, Dick Wilson used the Goon Squad and BIA police to threaten any political opposition. They beat and harassed traditional tribal members.
The worst thing was the prohibition against public meetings. At the time AIM came in, the tribal government was forbidding any public meetings and used the police to break up any that tried to start. So it was just like a police state, which is really what was behind the decision to make a last stand at Wounded Knee.
A century ago, on December 29, 1890, at Wounded Knee, South Dakota, the U.S. Army, Custer's Old Regiment, shot down 300 unarmed Lakota men, women, and children. They were accused of performing an outlawed ceremony called the Ghost Dance. The bodies of Chief Bigfoot and his followers were piled into a mass grave. It was the last massacre of the Indian Wars. Wounded Knee was the darkest hour in Lakota history, and it became a potent symbol for all Indians. On the night of February 28, 1973, the American Indian Movement led a band of rebels into Wounded Knee, just miles from Pine Ridge. They captured the town, sacked the general store, and barricaded themselves against the police. It was an audacious stand to gain national attention. The 300 insurgents were immediately surrounded by combat-trained federal marshals, FBI agents, and Wilson's vigilantes. The next morning, the world woke up to reports of a new Indian war. I left college and went straight to the reservation to help move supplies into Wounded Knee. We proclaimed the independent Oglala Nation, demanded an end to the corrupt system of tribal government, the removal of Dick Wilson, and the return of the Black Hills. The takeover would become a long, bitter 2.5-month siege, the largest armed conflict in the United States since the Civil War. Although they were surrounded by government forces during a harsh winter, a sense of dignity and confidence emerged within the embattled camp. Inside Wounded Knee, the dream of a free Indian society was reborn.
For 71 days, I never worried about a BIA person coming to tell me what to do, or a BIA police officer telling me what to do, or a BIA administration telling me what to sign or not sign, or what deed that could be authorized, or what resolution was passed. No white person ever came and came up to me and said anything to me about get moving, or that this land is my land and you cut your land over there. For once, white people came up and asked me, for direction. What, can I do this or can I do that? And there was a sense of freedom, of really being free, and I didn't want that to end. And I realized that when it was over, that it would be downhill.
After 71 days, the Indians surrendered when the government promised to consider their grievances. But negotiations never resulted in any progress on the issues. Instead, conditions only worsened. The FBI and federal prosecutors conducted a large-scale investigation of the American Indian movement, tying up its leaders in high-profile trials. Back on Pine Ridge, the anger and animosity provoked by Wounded Knee engulfed the tribe. With AIM tied up in the courtrooms, Dick Wilson was free to pursue a vendetta on the reservation. Any house rumored to shelter a political opponent of Wilson could become the target of a drive-by shooting. One evening in 1974, the Richards family was attacked. 5 family members were wounded.
I got hit in 2 places, and then I saw John's arm go, and then I just laid down with him, and then just that quickly it was over. The house was full of powder from the walls, and I turned and I was running into the kitchen, and my stepfather was laying, and there was just blood everywhere, and Lulu was laying half in and half out of the house, and Dokes was under the table, and it was just total confusion. There were kids laying all over. My other little sisters and my little stepsisters were laying on the ground. I didn't know who was dead, who was alive. And a neighbor pulled in and he took us to the hospital, and that car was going down the road and somebody was still firing.
We had no protection from our own police. We had no protection from the FBI. We had no protection from the U.S. Marshals or any kind of law enforcement agencies that exist. I felt like we were all working together and that we had to protect ourselves because it was the police that shot us up. There was no investigation afterwards.
Well, I guess it wasn't really law and order. It was protection. Protecting the people that were here that didn't support AIM, And
Tribal member Dwayne Brewer was a leader of the Goon Squad.
That was, mostly it. Like I said, we never allowed these people to come into town and raise hell. If they did, we were always gathered up. This house right here was firebombed on the corner. The houses I'm talking about that were shot up a lot are the ones that are up here.
How can you justify that kind of shooting at these guys?
You really can't. Just got away with it. It was going on all the time. If they wasn't shooting around and, and raising hell, then we were.